Hey everyone, welcome back to the Overseers. My name's Proelios, and in this episode, I'll be reviewing the Shanghai Dragons roster going into the postseason playoff games. So, like I've done for the past few teams, I'll be going through the Shanghai Dragons tank line, the DPS line, the support line, and then talking about what I think the Dragons' chances are to advance in these playoffs and possibly win the championship. So, without further ado, let's get into the review. And remember, guys, if you like my analysis, do remember to leave the video a like. It really helps the channel out and helps attract more Overwatch League fans over here, which is always appreciated and quite encouraging. So, yeah, do the like button. Anyway, let's talk about the Shanghai Dragons tank line first, which is Fate and Void. And I think, talking about Fate first, he has played ball for the most part this season and looked fairly decent. But I think what started happening was, as the season progressed, a lot of different teams started either being able to counter ball comps more and more effectively or mirror them to a better extent. So, like earlier on, we touted Fate as one of the best balls in the Overwatch League this season, mainly after the Shanghai Dragons utilized their ball composition to counter the Dallas Fuel's dive rush, or the Neo Goats as we call it now. Um, but I think at that time a lot of teams hadn't developed their ball comps well enough and hadn't even learned how to counter them effectively, because I mean the Shanghai Dragons had created that composition just to counter the Neogoats comp, and it worked out very well for them. But as time went by, we saw Fate especially getting countered quite hard by uh, their opponents, the Shanghai Dragons opponents, I mean. So his ball play seemed quite good against Neogoats comps because the Neogoats had no CC, I mean no hard CC whatsoever, which could counter Wrecking Ball. But later on, as teams started playing more Brigitte, more Ana, more Sombra, Fate started having a really tough time, especially. And even though ball comps still work against heroes like that, I at least feel that Fate struggles quite a lot against them when he's countered like that. So I think he's not going to be a top-notch ball player right now. He will have some good competition, but I mean that's on the kind of uh, bad side of things. I think there are some pluses to having Fate as well. Mainly, I think his Winston is really good. I mean, we've known Fate for his Winston for years now. He's a really smart player. He's not too aggressive, and he has great primal mechanics. So overall, a fantastic Winston player. And since last year, I've also been high on his Orisa. So Winston and Orisa, they've got those covered. And I mean, we know that his Reinhardt is a little bit flimsy at times. So, but the thing is, you don't necessarily need to play rush comps in this meta. So they should really be fine playing Winston and Orisa. But I think unless he has developed his ball play and learned how to play against his counters, the Dragons will have a tough time executing ball compositions. Anyway, backing Fate up is Void, who has mostly played D.Va for the season, and as usual, he's shown us some great high octane D.Va gameplay. And I think what Void does really well on D.Va is continuously apply pressure. He never leaves any off angles uncontested, and always kind of clears high grounds and things like that. So that's a fantastic playstyle. You wouldn't call him aggressive exactly, but he's just really aware, and he has really high APM, as you would say. So he also pulled out the Sigma a little bit, and has maintained his reputation as a great Sigma player, even though he just hasn't played a lot of I mean other off tanks than D.Va this season, but I think he's still doing well. Then let's move on to the DPS line, which is Flera and Lip primarily. They do have Who Are You and Develop, but I doubt they're going to be fielded at all. Uh, I mean, we all know about Flera at this point, right? He's just ever so consistent. Still one of my favorite flex DPS in the league. He's just the old reliable kind of player. You just play him in any meta and you're going to get good returns from him. So I'm not going to talk about him much. I do want to acknowledge Lip though, because I think this season especially is proven to be an elite Sombra player. Like I definitely thought he was the best or one of the best Sombras in season 3 as well, but his performances have been on another level this season. He seems to be not only really smart with his hack based plays, but he seems to maintain great comms with his team because all of his hacks are followed up on, and they usually get a pick off before the fight begins. Like that's all you really want as a Sombra player, right? And Lip, in addition to that, also consistently lands massive EMPs, which single-handedly win his team fights. And I mean that's not something every Sombra player can pull off. So like huge props to Lip. And Lip also seems to be a fantastic Ashe player. Whenever the Dragons played poke compositions, he seemed to have mastered every aspect of Ashe. He kind of built up Bob really quickly just because of how accurate he was with his shots and his dynamites, kind of comboing them with Fates or Orisa pulls sometimes. So that's just great stuff from him. And he also surprises us with some great tracer play because Lip isn't really known for his tracer, but he seems to be a natural flanker because he's a master at Sombra and also Reaper, if you guys know. But his tracer play also seemed phenomenal, so huge props to him for that. And I think Flera and Lip are truly uh, some big shining stars, not only just from the Shanghai Dragons but from the APAC region in general, because they are always really good, and that's like that level of consistency is very hard to find in Overwatch League players, especially. I mean, at the highest level, it's the hardest to remain consistent, so that's where I'm coming from. Anyway, let's move on to the support line, which is LeeJaeGon and Izayaki. Again, these guys do have Molly on flex support, but I don't think Molly is going to be playing because Izayaki has been starting for the Dragons for most of the season. Anyway, let's talk about Izayaki first since I mentioned him. So, as you guys know, Izayaki was nominated as an MVP candidate this season, and I think it's really well deserved because Izayaki was probably like a top 3 or top 5 flex support in the league this year. He is probably one of the most mechanically skilled flex supports out there, which is a high bar because flex supports in general are really good, have really good mechanics. So Izayaki, I think he's one of the best mechanical Anas, Zens, and even Baps in the league. Especially, I think on Ana he sets up great anti-nade plays because of his smart timings as well as his accuracy with the nade. And even with his Zen, like his Zen just might be the best in the league. You just cannot peak this guy because of how accurate his orb volleys are. And it's really not uncommon to see Izayaki start fights off with a solo pick. So he's just an amazing all-rounder flex support, and the Dragons are very lucky to have him. Then on main support, the Shanghai Dragons have got LeeJaeGon, who's just one of the most well-rounded main supports in the Overwatch League this season. He's great on all three main supports, that's Lucio, Mercy, and Brig. With his Brig, I think something you guys should watch out for, especially in the replay viewer, is LeeJaeGon's shield usage, because he's really good at like whipping it out just when he needs it to block some damage or cooldowns or to peel for a teammate. Then on Mercy, of course, he just kind of sticks to whomever he's pocketing and pulls out the Glock only when he needs to clutch. And on Lucio, we just know his antics on Lucio, right? He can play super aggressive, go for those really funky plays, and get a lot of value. And I think that's how he plays most of the time, even if they are playing a rush comp. Like he doesn't necessarily play with his team. The only time he really gets back to his tanks is when his team needs to absorb some aggression, and then as soon as he's done doing that, he's back to his solo missions. So that's how he plays, but he just gets so much value out of that playstyle that it's not worth changing it for the Shanghai Dragons. So just great to have him around as well. All the players reviewed, what do I think the chances of the Dragons advancing are? I think that, and this is based on a very specific condition. If the Dragons are able to either get Fate to be able to play ball into his counters, or they are able to peel well enough for him and pocket him so hard that he's not hard countered, then the Dragons can go deep in the playoffs. But I do not think that's likely, just because of like there's a kind of ceiling to which you can. I mean, every player has a ceiling to every hero, right? And I think Fate has kind of just reached his ceiling on Wrecking Ball. He didn't seem to improve in any way after the June Joust, because I mean, look, after the June Joust we had the Summer Showdown and then we had the Countdown Cup qualifiers, and during both those times Fate did not seem to get any better at Wrecking Ball. In fact, he started getting countered harder and harder and didn't seem to know what to do on certain occasions. So, like, first of all, I'm not bashing Fate here, right? Because uh, like when you play balls counters, I think they're some of the hardest counters in the game. But and like, considering that Fate wasn't known for his wrecking ball coming into this season, I can understand how it is hard for him to adjust so rapidly to the changing meta. So at this point, I don't think Fate's going to get there, like get to a point where he can realistically play ball. And I do feel that ball, at least for the Shanghai Dragons, is going to be crucial because um, like, although yeah, he can play Winston and he can play the Orisa, ball is just incredibly strong in this meta, and I think only a few select teams can really uh, do well without playing Wrecking Ball. So, and I don't think Shanghai is one of them. So just based off of their playstyles and based off of how the Dragons' trajectory has been this season, I think that the Dragons will probably go halfway or less.